Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today. Hi, Humphrey.
Hi, I've just pressed OK, so we're good.
Awesome. Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast. Today I have Humphrey Hawksley with me, thriller author, commentator, and podcaster. Welcome.
Well, it's great to be here. I'm in London, you're in Denver.
Yep. So just across the country and across the pond, I guess. Almost halfway around the world.
Yeah,
Not quite, maybe.
yeah, a long time. How are those airports at the moment in America?
It depends on which airport you go to, I think. I think in Denver, Denver must pay them or something because in Atlanta and some other cities like that, I've heard they have a lot of extra wait time, but here it doesn't seem to be an issue. So I don't know if
Oh,
somebody else is paying them or something. So,
okay, because I went through Denver to see some people the other day on my way to Alaska, but this was before this
uh,
trouble. And there was a huge, massive thing there. I almost missed the flight.
oh,
And this was
sorry.
sort of post-pandemic type of thing. So they couldn't get any staff to do anything.
Oh.
And there were huge lines that, everywhere. There was a line to Starbucks and a line to this because they had nobody that was nobody who could serve anything.
Well, and the Denver airport has exploded, and they're doing all this construction now, and it's crazy. I think it's just that we have so many more people in Denver than we used to. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But we're
So
here to talk about your books.
no, exactly. We got sidetracked. Yes, yes. What are your wonderful audience? What is their curiosity?
So I looked on your website a little bit, and I think you're a thriller author, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Well, talk to me about Man on Ice and Third World War then.
Right. So I am actually originally a journalist because you need a bit of capital in the bank to write for a living. So for 30 years or more, I was a BBC foreign correspondent. That's a British Broadcasting Corporation. And during that time, I must have been to God knows how many countries and God knows how many wars. Mainly there was sort of little wars going on, and then there was 9/11, and then that was Iraq and Afghanistan and all of that sort of stuff. And then I realized when I was doing one shoot one day that there was a very young, bright person that was sort of ordering everybody around, keeping everybody in order. And he was probably young enough to be my grandson, and or maybe my son. And I thought I should move on from this because otherwise I'll be doing it for the rest of my life. And that is when I started my second thriller series. So the first one I did whilst I was working as a journalist. And the second one, I've sort of concentrated more or less on that, plus doing the podcasts and hosting the shows. So the first one is called, what's called a future history series. And it was one of them, the first one was called Dragon Strike. Second one is called Dragon Fire. And then there's Third World War. And they were future military scenarios going back 20 plus years on a war between America and China, a war between India, China, and Pakistan. And then I wrapped it up with the Third World War, where you had everybody going after, with everybody else. And the Third World War was written. Um, I was doing a lot of coverage in Iraq at the time, and it came out in around 2003. So it was sort of just before the invasion there. So I'd been back and forth to Iraq, and it was really me examining, why countries actually end up fighting each other. And we're in this situation as we speak. I mean, we've got the US against Iran, and and it turns out, so as you write these things, the thing develops in these military scenarios. you have characters, but actually the countries are the characters. So the US does what the US does, Russia does what Russia does, China does what China does, and so on. And I deliberately made the leaders of these countries sensible people. They just wanted to get through, get everything through. But what happens is that events happen or things don't work out as you go, and they get painted into corners. And they feel they can't give way, they can't compromise, they can't do this, or such and such will happen. And Trisha, as we're speaking, I don't know, I have the feeling that this, Iran, both Iran and the US, are painting themselves into a corner now, with what they're doing, without getting into the rights or wrongs of it. They have to find a way out where they can retain their credibility, or their authority, whatever you want to call it, yet stop this craziness going on, because there was no craziness before the war happened. And that reflects very much what the Third World War was about. And that came out, as I say, it came out more than 20 years ago, but I've revisited it and we've republished it, or read whatever you do with a book nowadays. And it still sells quite well because people are, want to sort of understand these things. And then after that, I did a couple of non-fiction books in between, but I then started what is now the Rake Ozena series. And that was because I was doing a journalistic assignment, getting on for 10 years ago now. I think it was 2016, 2015. And Russia was being what Russia is in Europe, and it had just taken Crimea, and everybody was sort of ramping up the Cold War, new Cold War, and that sort of thing. And I thought, okay, Russia and America actually share a border. It's not all taking place in Europe. These two superpowers share a border, and the borders across the Bering Strait up in Alaska. Russia used to own Alaska, and America bought it off them. And then I looked at the map, and what I'd been reading about it was that there's like 50 miles of water, and that separates Siberia from Alaska. But actually, that's not the case. There are two islands. There's an American island with about 80 people living on it. And then there's a Russian island, and that Russian island is a military base, and less than 3 miles of water
Wow.
is between them. So I said, I've got to get to this island. And I don't know if any of your audience are of an age that they remember the governor of Alaska, Sarah Palin, who ran for vice presidency some years ago. And she said something in an interview. She said, of course we know about Russia. Americans can see Russia from their front yards. And she was pilloried all over the place, and they didn't know what she was talking about. Anyway, on this island called Little Diomede, it's basically a rock. You get up every morning, you open the windows, and you look out on Russia.
Ah.
So she was absolutely right. And and I went there, and it was meant to be a helicopter trip that you have to charter a helicopter to get there. The helicopter goes in there, was going to drop me, and was going to pick me up the next day, me and the film crew. And then the fog and the weather came down, and I ended up staying there for, I think it was 10 or 11
Oh,
days.
wow.
And this is a place, Tricia, I mean, it's 80 people, and they live in sort of stilted houses that cling to the side of the mountain rock. No roads, no cars, no restaurants, no hotels, no nothing. I slept on the floor of the school, and for 10 days. So there's only so many people you can interview there, and about that. So I just sort of said, I mapped out the plot for Man on Ice, which was essentially what would happen if fleet of Russian helicopters suddenly popped up and came and took the island. What would America, because they could do it just like that.
Right.
What,
Yeah.
yeah. What would America do?
Oh, well, it'd
And
be like, Japan invaded, December, Japan invading Hawaii again, right?
Yeah, yeah. Or would it? Interesting. Yeah, I mean, would it be that? Because I was part of the research I did. I was in Washington and I was asking people in what was the government? I think Trump was about, it was the beginning of Trump's first term, what America would do if this happened. Half of them said, "Oh, we'll just let them have it."
80 people,
Yeah.
right? They'll be
It's only
fine.
80 people, and because of the way politics works, these 80 people were blood related to the people on the other side that has suddenly become Russian because they cut this thing down the middle. If they cut a thing down the middle of Denver, do you have a friend or a cousin or something that's across the line? So there was blood families that went back for generations there. So yeah, just let them have it. But that became the Reiko Zena series, and I just did it, as I said, sort of sketching it out because I was stranded there and I wrote the book. Publisher bought it. And then I thought that was it. But I've just finished the fifth,
Wow.
and the fifth one's coming out in October.
Okay, so I mean, Man on Ice, I'm assuming there's one central character, this man. Is that correct? Or is it?
It's a man. You're right, and a man on ice, and it's meant to be a double entendre story, as they call it. So it's man on ice. So it's a sort of him. him taking on the Russians across the ice between the two lines. But then it's man on ice, like mankind, society on ice in case there's a Third World War. So, but mind you, when you're browsing a bookshop or scrolling Kindle, you don't get that. You either like the. In fact, I've got it. I saw it on the floor. This is an old. They've got a new cover now. This is the paperback cover of
All
it.
right.
So, see, it's one guy just walking across, meant to be between the two islands there. And then, and I, in the thriller genre, I was wondering who would be the guy that saves, who's going to be the Clint Eastwood that saves the world on this, or whoever that. And I sort of went around, and what's his name going to be? So you went around thinking, there's a James Bond or Jake Tapp or, something, two hard syllable names going in and, former Special Forces, West Point, whatever it is. And then I thought I'm nuts because three of the guys that I met on Little Diomede Island had been in Iraq, had been in Afghanistan, and one of them had fought with special forces there. And I checked with my military contacts. I said, "What were these guys like?" He said, "Well, you wouldn't want to mess with one of them. They are really, really good, and they're good. Professionally trained soldiers are good, but they grow up." In Little Diomede on these Arctic, it's subarctic, but on these sort of everything's about survival. It's about knowing, reading the weather, reading how a bird flies, reading how another person looks at you, and being able to defend or to hunt or to shelter yourself during the worst weather, to get food, to protect your family, and to make sure your weapon doesn't freeze in -30 temperatures and that sort of thing. So I thought, well, I'm completely nuts. I need to get one of these guys to do it. So I came up with Ray. Zen is a sort of common name in that area. I came up with Reiko Zena, and he's an orphan from the island, and an orphan because there's a lot of sort of family issues on islands like that, and when I was there, one of the things that sort of struck me was that it took a long time to strike me because I wasn't being that bright about the whole thing. But as a journalist, you go into a place and you always want to have the perfect family, and they're all together like that. But it didn't work like that there because there's a sort of hunting culture. So that the men will go off and hunt, and the women will sort of end up with somebody else. And I saw these kids, and I wasn't quite sure who they belonged to or where they were meant to be living. And one day they'd be in one house, one day they'd be in another. They were perfectly well looked after. They went to school, but Reiko Zena is an orphan who's both his parents sort of left, but he was raised by another couple on the family. And then he left the island because he knew that he joined the Alaska National Guard because he knew that was his way to get off the island, and he turned out to be exceptionally good and ended up being with special forces and all that sort of thing. And he has he has many cultural sort of attractions and issues, but one of them is that in Afghanistan he falls for a half Russian, half Estonian trauma surgeon whose parents live in Brooklyn. And you know how it is in relationships, they're completely and totally attracted to each other. They get on well, they know how each other thinks, but they know that it'll never work when they do the white picket fence or try to become a couple and the school run and all that sort of thing. It just isn't going to work for them. So during the 5 books that I've done, there's this on-off relationship with them both trying, other partners possibly, but heading off together. And of course, work always throws them together. Her name's Carrie, and so that couple has survived throughout the series. And there was one of them. I was wondering what role does she have in the next book? And I said, well, maybe I should kill her off or something. And no, as soon as she said, that's one person, you do not kill her off. So I kept her. And that's it. So we have Man on Ice, which was on Little Diomede Island. Man on Edge was up in northern Norway on the Russian-Norwegian border, a place called Kirkenes, and then across from there, the Russians. And then Man on Fire, we went back to Little Diomede, and then it was focused on Europe when there was going to be a big attack on Europe. Ice Islands. After the 4th one, maybe you could help me here. I couldn't think of a title to have Man on something that would be respectable. So, so if anybody can think of one, let me know. But then I called it Ice Islands, and that was based partly in Finland and partly in Japan. And the next one I'm doing, which is just going through the process at the moment, it's written, is called Operation Icebreaker, and that is set in Greenland, all around these issues I'm sure that you've been reading about.
Well, I was going to say torn from the pages, right? Or the headlines.
Torn from the pages. And so I'll see, and then I think I'll bring him back to Alaska for the next one. So I was up in Fairbanks, Alaska, which they've got a big sort of Arctic security. They've got the University of Alaska, and then they've got one of the best sort of research places for environment and security up in Fairbanks. So I went up there last year just to see if I could get any story ideas.
Neat. Yeah, being in Alaska seems like the worst place in the world to me, I have to say. Maybe like I do not like cold weather. I would not like being on a little island or traveling by helicopter, but I'm glad other people do, because I really like reading about being in situations where maybe, you are like, you're there, it's your survival. That's you have to think about that all the time.
So you don't like helicopters and you don't like cold. So you like a beach and a speedboat.
Well, I don't know. Boats are a little iffy for me too. But and we went to Hawaii and we were gonna go whale watching and on this boat, and my husband was like, it got canceled because the weather was bad. He was like, good, I didn't want to go anyway. I was like, what? You didn't want to go? Why didn't you tell me? And then we were gonna go on this helicopter ride, and that got canceled too. And then this year, like somebody died on one of those helicopters rides. So I'm like, this is not convincing me to go on them. So yeah.
Oh my goodness! So you and your husband were going to go on this trip, and one of you wanted it cancelled, and one of you didn't really want to go
and
anyway.
I never knew. Yeah, we never knew that both of us were scared to death of helicopters and boats. So yeah. But anyway.
So do you have deeper discussions now on? Do you really want to ride this elephant, or do you?
Yeah, I think riding elephants is sort of frowned upon now, but I did it when I was a kid at a zoo. It was really weird.
Yeah.
So
It's quite bumpy.
yeah. Well, I love the setting though. I mean, it seems like the settings can be such a backdrop and a challenge for the characters as well, right? It kind of becomes a character in and of itself, in addition to like all these countries and I was thinking like these special ops people on this island, I mean, they would just defend their island then, right? I mean, unless the Russians like really came at them with huge things.
Well, the way that it begins, and in fact, it happened recently. The reason, so I'll just so the Russians need to have a reason to go in, so they're intercepting radio traffic. There is a medical emergency of a dangerous pregnancy happening whilst the weather is bad, and they cannot get a helicopter from Anchorage or even closer by to them in time. So the Russians use that as an excuse to go in and help because they can get there in 3 minutes. So what Rake sees originally is he sees a helicopter coming across with a big red cross on it coming, and he's saying, well, this is unorthodox, but at least we can get some help. But then behind it, he sees a stream of what he recognizes as military helicopters. But he's also, and the island is also, you know, wary enough to know they can't take them on. You can't, when you've got that level of trained force coming in, you can't take them on. And the helicopters are down and the people are rounded up and put into a school. So you have a hostage situation. But what the Russians say they're doing is because the health levels are so bad on this island. Is that a man on cat?
Yes, or cat on man.
Cat on man. Cat on man. And it is that they say that the health situation is so bad that they need to come in under sort of international human rights and check on the health of the villagers. So, but strangely, a couple of months ago, your president said that they were going to send a hospital ship to Greenland because the
Oh.
Greenlanders were so unhealthy that they needed to be checked for. And I thought, what?
Oh my, you can't make this stuff
You
up. Oh
couldn't
my
make it up.
goodness.
This guy. I don't know what
Wow.
happened to that hospital ship, but that was exactly the same premise in which the Russians came into went onto the island.
And which is so crazy because the people in the United States are probably much more unhealthy than the people in Greenland.
Well, quite possibly, because particularly the hunters, because they're eating, the fish that they caught, the crabs that they got through the ice, or the things that they shoot. Whereas, but Denver's a pretty healthy place, isn't it?
Denver is, yes. I
I,
I
I,
feel like it.
I've got to tell you, I spent, I think it was in Nebraska. Well, what's the neighboring state that you have? Is it Nebraska?
Nebraska, yeah, and
Okay.
Kansas, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So in Nebraska, I spent with the BBC about a week's filming in Nebraska, and we were doing farming and whatever it was there. I swear that when I crossed the border from Nebraska to Denver, I was suffering from malnutrition because that you couldn't get anything to eat. There was no fruit, there was no vegetables. And I ordered a lasagna once, and basically it was two things of pasta with tomato sauce in the middle of it. And everybody was a little obese there. I said, and then you cross the border into Colorado, and people were jogging, and people were slim, and people. I thought, what the hell's going on here? There's two different societies.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Maybe when you got a moment, drive across to Nebraska and see what changes.
Well, I've only been to Nebraska one time. This is embarrassing, but like our flight got diverted from the Denver airport because there were storms, and but we landed at such a small airport they didn't even have one of those a high enough ladder or a big enough ladder to get us off the plane. Like we were just had to sit on the runway for like 4 hours, and then they flew us back to Denver.
Oh, they refilled the plane and flew you off. Yeah.
Yeah. So we couldn't even get off the plane. So
Oh
yeah.
well, that's mind you, there is a very good author friend I've got who in Nebraska who lives on a farm, and she's as fit as they come, and the
Yeah.
husband's even fitter. So it's not 100%.
No, it's not. No, we won't say anything bad about Nebraskans. They make a lot of
And
our corn and things like that. And wheat.
yeah, Isn't Warren Buffett from Nebraska? You know, the
Oh
billionaire.
yeah.
I think he's.
Maybe somewhere in the Midwest, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you Midwest in Denver? Is that Midwest or not?
But we're like more like mountain states, we call
Mountain
ourselves.
State.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, we got diverted. We must get back to geopolitics.
Right, I know. So yeah, so political thrillers, and it sounds what is I have trouble if I can't pronounce the name of the main character. So tell me the name of the main character again.
Of Rake Ozena
Reiko
is
Zinna. Okay.
Rake Ozena is it's called the Rake, we're calling it the Rake Ozena series. And the Operation Icebreaker is the new Greenland one that's coming out in October.
Okay.
And I hope to do a tour around. I don't know if Denver's going to be included, but a tour of Canada and North America there. And there's a mystery thriller writers conference called Bouchercon, which is in late October, which is up in Calgary this year. So it must be a North American one. So I'm going to fix a tour around that.
Well, fine. Yeah, if you come to Denver, let me know. We'll have to
I
get
will, yes.
drinks or coffee or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. Well, would you do a Q&A with me at any bookshops near you?
Yeah, we have tons of bookshops. We have privately owned bookshops, and we have a Barnes and Noble even in my town. So that's always
Oh,
surprising.
privately owned ones. If I could do anything to get more customers to the privately owned ones, then you could do a good deed with the day. But I'm sure they're doing very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there seemed to be re a resurgence of like locally owned bookstores here. So that's a
You
good
know,
thing.
I think people now we're getting diverted again, but I'll just say this because you're a podcaster, so partly it's to do with what we're talking about. I think this idea of this, attention that only lasts for 5 seconds, I think that's waning out. I think that there's a distrust in the news generally. People are getting bored with flicking their phones all the time, and that's why podcasts and reading is coming back into fashion. And people actually enjoy burying themselves into a story in a book and learning about a whole new world, or listening into the podcasts and sort of getting to know people and getting to know issues and being part of a new community. And this idea of X or Twitter that it used to be called, or Facebook and the reels, I think that'll all diminish.
Maybe so. Yeah, it does. I mean, I love a good distraction. So podcasts and audiobooks and books are my jam. So yeah, not surprisingly, right?
What's your favorite genre of book?
I like fantasies. I don't, and romances usually. So yeah, I don't read thrillers as much just because they remind me of the real world too much sometimes.
That's
But
interesting.
if because I don't, things like 9/11 are very disturbing to me, and things like war and all those types of things. So if I can live in a place that doesn't have that, then that's generally where I live.
The books
Sorry,
take you
no,
there.
No offense to your
No,
genre.
no, but the fantasy. What is the so Game of Thrones, Fire and Stone? Is that fantasy?
Yes, that's fantasy. So I mean, that did have political stuff in it too, I guess. So
Yeah,
political
yeah.
state,
It had, but Lord of the Rings. That's fantasy.
right? Right.
So
Yeah.
what's the big fantasy book at the moment that everybody's talking about,
A
or
lot
you're
of
thinking about?
like the Sarah J. Maas Fae fantasies are very romanticities are very popular in the fantasy world now. So yeah.
Did you say mermantasies?
No, romanticities.
Oh, romantic. Oh, so that's a
Or
romance. That's a fantasy.
right, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or mermantasy. That's a new one. We created a new genre, mermaid romantasy.
Yes. Yes. I think because somebody mentioned that to me that they
Oh.
were writing a mermantasy, and I said,
Oh.
"What's that?" And there was
Oh.
exactly what you said. It was a mermaid and a fisherman, I think, or something like that. And that's called a
Mhm.
mermantasy. Is that young adult, or that's adult, or it's just
That could be either. Yeah.
yeah,
Some
yeah,
of them are very dark though, so I don't really read the dark stuff, but some of them are very
yeah.
dark. So
So when you're reading, or looking for something, is there a sort of red line to darkness that you say, no, I don't want that?
Yeah, and
Um,
sometimes I don't read the back, so sometimes I'll start reading something and I'll be like, oh, this is not what I wanted. It's like on to the next one. But I do like books that have these big like scenes that I haven't been, so I haven't been to Greenland or Alaska. So I do like
yeah,
those type of books that kind of take me out of where I am and put me in a different place that I can learn about the culture and like the environment and the people that live there. So
yeah,
that appeals to me. Your books
yeah,
appeal to me in that way, I guess.
yeah. There's so much because when I was a kid at school, I was not a very good student. So somebody could talk to me about, D-Day in the Second World War or Pearl Harbor and that, and put it up on a blackboard, and I would know about it, but I wouldn't feel it. It would go there. And then I started reading books fictional books. So I remember reading Leon Uris's Exodus about the creation of Israel, and I couldn't put it down. And at the end of it, I knew the characters, I knew why, I knew what had happened. Of course, all of that goes into perspective, but that locks me in. And then there was James Michener, who wrote The Drifters and Poland, and
Right.
he did Alaska actually.
Mm.
And there was a guy called Robert Ruark who taught me everything about Africa, about the decolonization, the Mama rebellions, and all that sort of thing. And I got it by reading those books. I didn't get it by reading the nonfiction.
Oh, interesting.
And I
So to
think
telling a story like brought it to life for you. Like it
yes,
brought even facts brought facts to life to you. So
I think so. And when I write, writing's like playing golf. You're never going to get perfect at it. But when I write them now as I move on, you want the pace to go like this, but drip in something that the reader doesn't know and that will interest them. Even if it's a line, even if it's the way somebody speaks, so that they can go away thinking, oh, I've just this great story about this guy called Ray Kazena, but actually I now know about the American-Russian border. I now know
yeah.
about the Japan. I mean, when I was researching Ice Islands, that was the fourth one. Um, it's set up, the final thing set up on the Japan-Russian border. And what I didn't know when I started doing it is that Russia and Japan still are technically at war.
Oh,
They haven't
interesting.
signed a peace treaty. It's like North and South Korea, so researching, you learn these things and that set me off on a whole lot of because I do journalism as well, a whole journalistic track, because a lot of people, you know, experts knew it and I should have known it, but most people don't. You didn't know that, did you? No.
No.
There we go. We both
No,
learned
I
something
learned
today.
something new. Well, yeah, and I mean that makes sense that you went into journalism because in journalism you tell a story usually. I mean, you tell the
Yeah.
story of what's going on and how to captivate people to the story, right? And so your whole
Yes.
life is storytelling. That's just
Yeah.
amazing to have that career and that
Yeah.
trajectory. So,
Yes, no, I think the big difference, Tricia, is that as a journalist, you get the most important stuff out at the front.
oh yeah,
So
that
a
makes
fire
sense.
broke out yesterday at a church and six people died, right? As a novelist, you have to stagger your reveals. So you build up suspense so you don't say where it is and who did it to begin with. It's take it even now I can't do it. I do a first draft and a second draft, and then I think, well, hold on a second. No, I have to put that reveal further down because I'm
Yeah.
still thinking like a journalist.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's a different way of writing because my
Yeah,
second job is technical writing. So I get that. Like it's a totally different brain process.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Technical writer, that's very disciplined.
yes, it is. It's very verbose as well, but that's a
Did
different
you,
story.
are you allowed to use adjectives?
Yeah, sparingly. Yeah.
And which one do you enjoy the most? The technical writing or this?
Well, yeah, if I could do fiction writing all the time, I would probably do that. Well, I'm going to wrap this up here. Your next book, Ice Islands, correct? Or no, that was the
No,
fourth book.
Operation Icebreaker.
Operation Icebreaker is coming out October of 2026.
Yeah, October,
Where can we find you and all of your books?
You can find, is my name up on your screen? I don't think it is. It's Humphrey Hawksley. That's Hawksley. If you Google that, the website comes up straight away, and it comes up. Or the Rekozena, it's Rake and then Ozenna. Google that and Humphrey Hawksley, or just Google that, and the book should come out. And they've just been, show how the publishing world's changing. They've just been re-licensed, I'm told, or reissued. So they've got new covers, and the Kindle prices dropped way down. So it used to be $16 for a Kindle book, and now I think you get it for 99 cents.
Oh, wow.
And I absolutely don't understand. I don't understand the new publishing business model, but it's really changing. I mean, you would know this. It's really changing fast, isn't it?
Yeah, well, sometimes they put like the first in the series for like cheap so that you get hooked on the series, and then you buy, all the other books.
Or for $16.
Right. Because you have to read them. You can't stop.
Yeah.
Well, I will.
Fun.
Yeah, I will vouch for the fact that if you type in Humphrey Hawksley, you get your website on the first hit. So I did that, and I found you.
Okay, and just to say that there's no if you want to contact me, you send it hh@humphreyhawksley.com. We do answer. I do answer the emails, and we love to hear from readers, questions, suggestions, and all of the rest of it.
Awesome. And can you find your podcast on your website as well?
The podcasts, you can, but we're rearranging it. The key pod is sort of podcast YouTube thing. I don't know how many these things were. It's called the Democracy Forum, and that is about big issues of the day. So we did Iran war last week. We're doing Bangladesh, and then we're doing something else the week. Oh, we're doing water. Whoever controls water, how much is that a weapon of war? So we do we drill down on these big issues that sort of brush across most people. But if you want to tune in, I learn an awful lot from it. Then I have another one called Care Vision's Professional Talk, which looks much more personally with professionals at the trauma, particularly trauma amongst children from broken homes, people growing up into adolescence. And what's the best way to look after them, to care for them, to mentor them through so that they don't fall through the cracks. And I find that fascinating. It's completely different. And I'm learning so much from that, particularly young adult men that we had a fascinating one on about how they apparently it's very difficult to understand what masculinity is if you're a teenager in today's world because of all the, I don't know why, but this is fascinating thing. I don't think it's gone up yet. But anyway, that's Care Vision's Professional Talk. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for being here. Yeah, both of those podcasts seem really informative and important. So I will look those up because I'm a big listener of podcasts. Thank you for being here, and I hope you will come back when you release your next book.
Thank you, Tricia. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks.
You too. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Tricia Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.